Hello and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. Today, my guest is Nicola Hunt, who is a physiotherapist based in the United Kingdom. And today, our topic is optimizing brain health and the importance of sleep. Nicola has experience working with people with brain injury over the last 20 years, and we really deep dive into this topic about the different stages of sleep, what happens in those stages, why it's important, sleep hygiene, how to optimize our brain health, why meaningful relationships are important, why it's important to take pause in our daily life, why movement and exercise and all of these things are so important. This episode is packed full of juicy information, and I enjoyed it so much. Please, if you're enjoying these episodes, take a moment to give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. It definitely means so much to us in the podcast. And I want to thank you so much for being here today. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast, a place to explore possibility through mindfulness, movement, and self-discovery. Our intention is to deliver insight and inspiration while fostering conversations that are genuine, unfiltered, and deeply human. We hope you will enjoy today's episode. Hi, Nicola. Welcome to the Connected Community Podcast.
Hi, Nikki, and thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, so we have a lot to talk about today. And one of the things is how to optimize our brain health and keep our brain healthy. And then I know that there's going to be a deep dive into sleep and the importance of sleep. So I'm curious, like, how you got into this topic and what some of your background and qualifications are.
Okay, so I'm a chartered physiotherapist, and for the last 20 years, I've been working with people with brain injury. I spend so much of my time thinking about how do I optimize somebody's brain health for recovery after an injury. But there is so much more that we could be doing with everybody because we all have a brain. Just thinking about, how do we make our brain the best it can be? How do we give it the things that our brain needs to thrive? And I did my brain health coaching qualification and also my heart math qualification, which looks at using heart rate variability and sort of balancing the nervous system, both of which are really important for brain health.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my leap from sort of being a physio working in brain injury, which I still do. But I also now offer coaching, brain health coaching and education to people who want to enhance their brain, maximize how well it works and future-proof it for the future.
And for the people in the U.S., a physiotherapist is equivalent to a physical therapist in the United States. That's the same qualification. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So let's dive into sleep, because I think that a lot of us minimize the impacts of and importance of sleep. And so why is sleep important for our brain health and our overall well-being and functioning?
Sleep is really when the body recovers from the day and the brain recovers from the day and gets ready for the next day. So if we think about sleep, then there are different stages of sleep, and each stage of sleep has a different function. So the first sort of period of sleep is called light sleep, but actually that's split into two areas. So we think about we call it N1 sleep and N2 sleep. And that's that sort of falling into sleep. So N1 is that sort of, you feel yourself in N1 sleep. It's that sort of drifting off to sleep, very easily woken up. And that lasts sort of around about 1 to 7 minutes in the average person. And then we go into a slightly deeper but still light sleep, which is called N2 sleep. I think most people have probably heard of REM sleep.
Yeah.
So light sleep is a non-REM sleep. It's not when we have the rapid eye movements, which is what REM stands for. So that light sleep is almost sort of preparing the body for sleep and preparing us to get into the phases of sleep that are more functionally important for the brain and the body. But it's called light sleep. It's fairly easy to be woken up from that level of sleep. But then we drop into deeper sleep. And that's the sort of the sleep stages that it's much more difficult to be woken from. If
Yeah.
you're in a really deep sleep, you're in N3 sleep. And deep sleep is where the brain sort of gets rid of all the information from it didn't need from the day.
Yeah.
So if we think about our day, every single experience that we have is like a piece of paper in the filing cabinet of the day. So it's all in our in tray and it's stacking up and up and up and up as we go through the day. When we get into deep sleep, this is the sort of stage of sleep where it's restorative and it's healing of the body. So this is our growth phase.
Mm-hmm.
So even in adults, we're not growing vertically, but our cells are still growing. We're replacing old cells with new cells. And it's in this deep section of sleep that occurs. Mm-hmm. So again, if we're not getting good sleep in that deep sleep stage, then that's where we get some of the problems, maybe like inflammation of the body, aches and pains, not feeling as if, our immune system is lower. So our immune system doesn't kick in and protect us from the coughs and colds.
When is this? Is this after 7 minutes? The N3?
No, sorry. So you've got N1, which is up to about 7 minutes. Okay. And then you've got N2, which is that light sleep still, which is around about between 10 and 25 minutes.
Okay. So what's the difference between the 1 and 2?
Just the level of light sleep that you've got. Okay. So as you're going into sleep, they call it sort of very light sleep because you're very easily woken. Anything external happening will disturb you. But then when you're still lightly asleep, but a little bit longer into that period of sleep, then you are less easily woken, although you still can be reasonably easy woken. If you're woken from deep sleep, that's when you feel that really groggy, difficult to come round, please don't talk to me for the next 10 minutes type feeling. And that's because we're not designed to be woken up from that phase of sleep.
How long does that last?
So that varies from person to person and throughout the night. So it lasts between 20 to 40 minutes. And during the first half of the night, we have more deep sleep and less REM sleep. And then as the night progresses, we have less deep sleep and longer periods of REM sleep.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we're doing more REM sleep later in the evening. And so what is the importance of REM sleep?
Later in the night. So sort of coming towards the morning, we have longer periods of REM sleep. So REM sleep is when we dream. And it gets its name from rapid eye movements. So during REM sleep, we go into what's called atonia, which describes the muscle tone, as in we don't have any. So it's called sleep paralysis. If you wake from, so again, if you're woken from REM sleep, people will sometimes feel that momentary feeling of paralysis because they've been woken very abruptly and the muscle atonia hasn't stopped. But the reason it happens is so we don't act out our dreams. And again, you get very rare people who don't have that atonia through REM sleep or the rapid eye movement sleep. Yeah. So they do act out their dreams.
I'm thinking about my cat.
Yeah, I'm not sure about cats and dogs. But yes, my dog has his little legs going when he's dreaming. But so REM sleep is sort of the latter part of the sleep cycle, and again lasts sort of anything from 10 minutes earlier in the night to up to an hour later in the night, so sort of in those early hours of the morning. And it's thought to be sort of linked with sort of learning and creativity, with memory, and again, it's important that we go through that because that's the sort of the period of sleep that helps us to consolidate our memory.
Yeah. What about when we're woken up? Like I have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, almost every single night. Right. Does that disrupt my sleep a lot?
It is likely that you will so things like bathroom visits in the night tend to be when you're into light sleep. So it would be it would be unusual to wake yourself from some of the deeper sleep.
Okay. So are you saying that we go, because then that's like fairly in the middle of the evening for me. So am I going from 1 to 2 to 3 back into 1 and 2?
Potentially, yes. So what should happen is that an average cycle is around 90 minutes for sleep cycle. In the beginning, so you've got the sort of the light sleep phase being up to sort of the first 30 minutes. And then you go into the deep sleep, which is somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes, depending on which section of the night it is. And then you go into REM sleep, which again, early in the night is around about 10 minutes. Later in the night can be up to an hour.
Okay.
So you should cycle through each cycle without any interruption. And then you're getting all stages of sleep, because all the stages have a function. So if you are naturally waking up, then what tends to happen is you go through the sort of light sleep, you sink down into deep sleep, you come up into light sleep again, and that's when you tend to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, so you'll have that brief prelude where you've got no sleep because you're up in the bathroom,
Right.
and then you should go through the cycle again of dropping into light sleep, deep sleep, and into REM sleep again.
Okay. What about those circumstances where you're having a dream or a nightmare, and you wake up and you want to go back into it, or you don't want to go back into it, and you end up back in that dream or nightmare?
We don't know quite as much about why people sort of fall straight back into it.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a theory that, you're not fully awake, although you feel awake,
mm-hmm.
and you're sort of cycling back into it. But certainly if you're woken up or you wake from REM sleep, that's the best time you're going to remember it.
Okay.
And that's why they say, if you want to study your dreams, if you want to remember your dreams, have a pad and paper beside your bed.
Right.
And as soon as you wake, write your dreams down.
Okay.
Because we don't tend to remember them for very long after waking.
Mm-hmm. So back to my annoying cat. My alarm's set for 7 o'clock in the morning, and like 6:20, 6:30 every morning, my cat comes in, wakes me up. I'm super annoyed. I can't go back to sleep. Is that detrimental to my sleep cycle? Is it because I'm not waking up naturally? I'm getting woken up and then I can't go back to sleep. And I know a lot of people get woken up by different things in the morning. Maybe it's a garbage truck, maybe it's an animal. How does that affect our sleep?
So again, it shortens our sleep. But if you have good sleep habits, or otherwise known as good sleep hygiene, then you actually will have fallen into a natural rhythm of, although you set your alarm for 6 o'clock, your body is ready to wake up those 20 minutes earlier because it's got used to that being your normal waking time.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we all have nights where, we don't get the right amount of sleep, we don't get the right quality of sleep.
Yeah.
But it's that sort of that consistent pattern of, setting a consistent bedtime, and more importantly, actually setting a consistent wake time that helps to tune our body into its own natural sleep cycles.
Yes, I've heard this. And so in theory, in an ideal world, we would be doing that consistently through the week and the weekend.
Absolutely, yes.
Right.
And certainly for the treatment of insomnia, it's really, really important that people have a consistent getting up time and a consistent going to bed time 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of prompts the body to get into the pattern. The reason that's important is actually one of the things that determines when we're going to feel sleepy is how soon we get daylight into our eyes.
Yes. I've been hearing this so much lately too. Like we're supposed to get 20 minutes and just go out into the sun in the morning and let that kind of wake our bodies up.
Yes.
Instead of grabbing the phone.
Absolutely. So if we go out into natural daylight, there's a lot of blue light there. It's, even on a cloudy day, it's around 10,000 lux. So that's a very high level light. You would need to be having specialist lamps to be able to regenerate that amount of light in your own home. And you may have heard of light therapy boxes that do that, but they are very, very bright. And so it's that sort of daylight hitting the eyes, going through to where the pineal gland is in the middle of the brain, and starting the sort of the production of melatonin to be stored up through the day, so that when nighttime falls and we lose light, that is the cue to release that melatonin to make us feel sleepy.
So can we sit by a window, or do we need to get our body outside?
We can sit by a window. So ideally you'd be outside, but obviously, and I mean, I'm in the UK, so our weather certainly isn't good enough all year round to go and spend 20 minutes first thing in the morning outside. So absolutely, you can sit by a window and just make sure that you're getting that sort of 20 minutes of daylight first thing.
Okay. So as soon as we possibly can after we wake up, we want to get our bodies into sunlight.
Yes.
Something I've noticed with my own child, he's 10, is that in the summer when the days are longer, he doesn't seem to need as much sleep as the winter. Or in the winter, he's getting tired earlier, he's sleeping longer. And in the summer, he can stay up a lot later. Is that because of the patterns of the sun? Is that normal? Is that
Yes.
good to
Yeah.
follow those patterns?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what our body is designed to do. But then, we had the very useful invention of electricity, which none of us would want to be without. But that is one of the big things that upsets our sleep patterns, because we can put a light on. So melatonin should build up through the day, and then it's darkness, so the lack of light going into the eyes, and that then triggers it to be released. And that's one of the chemicals that helps us to feel sleepy. So yes, your son is following a very natural sleep pattern. Is it's starting to get dark, I'm starting to feel sleepy.
Yeah. Let's talk about melatonin and as a supplement to help aid sleep. What are the pros and cons?
We have very, very different thoughts on that either side of the ocean, because in the UK melatonin is not available other than by very specialist equipment,
Interesting.
prescription.
Yeah.
Whereas I think where you are, it's available to purchase
Everywhere. It's all over the place.
Yes. So it has a role. It's best used in the short term.
Yeah.
For sort of things like, resetting after jet lag, because again, it's that sort of releasing that melatonin that helps us to feel sleepy. And we also have our internal body clock that has got used to being sleepy in our own time zone. So it just does help to shift that. But as I say, that's something probably people where you are in America will know much more about than us in the UK, because we aren't allowed it over here.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And so when you're talking about sleep hygiene, what does that mean? And let's go into good sleep hygiene habits.
Okay, so good sleep hygiene, one of the very simple ones is a steady bedtime and a steady time to get up. So you've got consistency 7 days of the week within sort of, 10, 15 minutes. And then having a good wind down routine to be able to sort of get into bed. So rather than sort of going from like racing around everywhere and then just jumping into bed and hoping you'll go to sleep, actually having a little bit of a wind down routine. And I think it's something that anybody that's a parent has sort of made the effort to do that with their children, but we don't do it with ourselves.
I was just thinking how awesome I am with my child and not with myself. As
Yes.
right before you said that, yep.
I think every parent is the same. That we're very sort of so we recognise that a good bedtime routine helps promote sleep.
Yep.
But then we sort of ignore it. We ignore it a little bit when it comes to ourselves. But having that bedtime routine does help to sort of tell our body, oh, it's time to go to sleep. The same way that, some people will always, that we have sort of roughly set meal times through the day. And we'll go, oh, I'm starting to get hungry because this is the time that I normally eat. And that's the same if we do a consistent bedtime. We're prompting our body that this is the time that you go to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's sort of one of the things. But the other things is what you do in those sort of hours before sleep. So if we think, first of all, about stimulants, thinking caffeine being the big one.
Yeah.
That caffeine stays in the system for many, many hours after we drink a cup of coffee. So if you are somebody who's affected by caffeine and it interferes with your ability to go to sleep, then, the ideal is sort of no caffeine after midday, but certainly sort of 2-3 o'clock would be the absolute cutoff to having any caffeinated drinks, and watching out for that sneaky caffeine that's in Coke and chocolate, not just a cup of coffee.
Yes. I'm super sensitive to caffeine. I don't have a lot of caffeine in my in my daily usage. And sometimes I forget, like I'll have a dark chocolate and I forget how much that affects my body.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's sort of looking out for that, that hidden caffeine. And then if we think about sort of food that goes along with sort of what we need. So again, if we think about how our body prepares for sleep, when we go to bed, our body temperature needs to drop by 1 to 2 degrees for us to be able to have a good night's sleep. So anything that raises our body temperature before bedtime will make it more difficult for us to fall into a good sleep cycle. So things like eating just before bedtime, because when we eat, we've got food in the stomach that needs to be digested, and digesting food is an active process in the body. Anything that's an active process raises the body temperature, therefore can prevent us getting a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Then you've got things like exercise. Again, if we exercise too close to bedtime, the body temperature is raised. And so it makes it more difficult to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then if we think conversely what we do with our children as a parent, if you're a parent, we give them a bath. Because what we do is we give them a bath, which gives them a little bit of rise in body temperature, and then their body temperature drops nicely, ready for bedtime.
Oh, does it? Okay. So you don't want to do a bath too close to bedtime, but it's okay to do it in the evening?
Yes, absolutely. You can have a bath in the evening, because what the bath does is, whilst you're in the water is nice and warm, and so all the blood vessels that are close to the surface of the skin open up and get bigger to enable you to lose heat. So when you get out of the bath, then your blood vessels are close to the surface, full of blood, and that helps to cool us, because it very quickly gets rid of the excess heat that's in the body from the bath. And it's that body recognizing that drop in temperature that helps us to go into sleep.
And then cooling the house down or cooling the room down.
Yes.
Yeah.
So keeping the bedroom cool. The bedroom, generally speaking, sort of 16 to 18 degrees, depending on what level of covers you've got on your bed, is a comfortable temperature for going to sleep. Elderly, a little bit higher maybe, because they have more difficulty maintaining a good body temperature.
And what about alcohol and sleep?
Alcohol changes your sleep pattern. So as well as alcohol raising your body temperature, because you've got to metabolize the alcohol off, so it can make it more difficult to go into a normal sleep pattern. What tends to happen when we have alcohol is we actually fall asleep very quickly, but we're not cycling through those normal sleep patterns. And as we continue to metabolize the alcohol, then you get that peak in body temperature, and you may well wake up a few hours later feeling quite hot. And then again, you've disrupted the normal sleep cycle. Some of the research shows that alcohol actually reduces the amount of time in dreaming sleep, in REM sleep. So that's one of the areas of sleep that we think about as sort of our cognitive function. So our planning and memory and problem solving skills aren't as sharp maybe the next day, because we've had that REM sleep removed. And of course, chronic night on night use of alcohol has longer term effects on removing that dreaming, that REM sleep. So therefore you can get sort of longer term problems.
Yeah. And then when we travel, like especially when we're doing overseas travel, I always heard it was best to just automatically adjust to the time zone that you're going into. So like if you're getting in there in the evening, just kind of push yourself and go to bed early. Or if you get there in the morning, push yourself and stay awake until evening. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the best way to get your body back into the time zone rhythm that you are now in, is to do that. And actually, under medical supervision for severe insomnia, we may actually sort of advise sleep deprivation, so that somebody actually stays up for 24 hours and then goes to bed at their normal bedtime the next day.
Yeah.
So that your body is ready to sleep.
Yeah.
Because some of the issues around sort of insomnia and sleep disorders is the fact that people spend time lying in bed awake, and therefore they learn, it's learned behavior that when I go to bed, I don't necessarily sleep.
Yeah. And what about napping past, childhood?
Again, napping can be useful, but it's about when to use it. So if we think about sort of a normal sort of standard adult sort of daytime, adults will tend to go to bed somewhere between 9 p.m. midnight for the majority of adults. Some will flex that a little bit. So generally speaking, you don't want to nap too late in the day because you want to be able to build up that pressure to need to sleep rather than relieve it with a nap. So if you need to have a nap to get through the day, and that, lots of people have disrupted sleep for various different reasons, then, having a nap before 2 o'clock helps to sort of give you a little bit of boost in the day, but doesn't interfere too much with your nighttime sleep. And again, the optimal sort of time for a nap is 20 to 30 minutes. So you're not going into that deep sleep cycle.
Yeah, that was my next question. Yeah, that makes sense. Because sometimes I don't take naps very often, but every once in a while I do. And if I take one, sometimes I wake up and I feel awful.
Yes. So if you've gone into deep sleep and then you have to awaken from that, you're not going to feel good.
Okay. So if somebody's going to do that, maybe set an alarm for 20 or 30 minutes so that they get some rest without going into deep sleep.
Yes.
Yeah. And what are some of the other myths around sleep that you find common?
I think one of the big ones is around blue light and screen use. So we know that blue light, so the blue light from the sun, from daylight, is one of the things that sets our 24-hour circadian rhythm, and therefore our sleep wake cycle. So there has been sort of a general belief that blue lights from screens will therefore interfere with falling asleep.
Yeah.
And I think that was really became a popular belief with Matt Walker's book of Why We Sleep. And but actually when you look at the research into it, it's not quite as clear cut as blue light from screens stop us from sleeping. And Matt Walker has done 2 very interesting podcasts on that around, going into actually it's not quite as simple as blue light from screens stop us from sleeping, because although there is blue light from screens, it's not high enough level to change our circadian rhythm. However, what screens do is create sleep procrastination. So instead of us going to bed when we intended to go to bed, we end up going to bed 20, 30, 40 an hour later.
Right.
Because we got very engrossed in what our screen was scrolling through.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
So it's, although there is maybe a small link between the blue light and the screen, one of the bigger problems with screens is the fact that it actually procrastinates our sleep, and therefore we're not going to bed when we feel tired.
Yeah.
Because if we think of our sleep cycle, we have that same sort of alert, low level alert, low level alert every 90 minutes throughout the entire day. But we call them, when we're asleep, they're sleep cycles. But we will, as we go through the day, have periods where we feel more energized, and then we'll have that slump, and then we'll feel more energized again, and we'll have that slump. And what we should be doing is going to bed in that slump.
Yeah.
Because that's when we're ready to go to sleep. And what things like screen usage do is we hit the slump and we go, oh, I'll go into bed and I'll scroll through my phone. And then we've come up to our more alert state, and we're not ready to go to sleep because we need to wait another 45 minutes to go back into that slump. So we miss our golden window to fall asleep.
Yes, I've done that where I've pushed through being tired, and then I'm kind of wired, but I'm sleepy.
Yes.
Yes. And what about the myth around teenagers and sleep?
So teenagers have a shifted circadian rhythm compared to younger children and adults. So a teenager living a natural sleep cycle will fall asleep much later than an adult. So they won't feel that pressure to sleep until much later. So teenagers staying up till sort of 12 o'clock midnight is
Yeah.
actually their normal sort of sleep rhythm.
Yeah.
But because they still need those sleep cycles, those sort of 7 to 9 hours sleep, then they actually do need to sleep later in the morning.
Yeah.
So teenagers do have that shifted pattern where if they were following their healthy body circadian rhythm, they would go to bed later, but they would get up later.
Yeah.
Not
Interesting.
2 o'clock in the afternoon, because that's just pushing it.
Right. Right.
but they do have a naturally later waking time.
And what about the idea of making up lost sleep?
You can't.
Mm-hmm.
So because when we sleep, what happens is, we're processing the day before, and our body is repairing itself. Growth hormones are released, so the cells are repairing it. We're boosting our immune system. We're sort of clearing out the brain's in tray so that it's ready for the next day's information to come in. Then you can't gain back that sleep. So you've lost that sort of cleansing effect of sleep.
Yeah.
It may help you feel a little bit less tired, but you won't get the sort of the benefits that you would have got from that night's sleep.
And what are the effects of long-term sleep deprivation? Mm-hmm.
So in the short term, people will feel, they describe it as things like brain fog, or they're not as sharp. A lot of people will say, oh, my memory's going. But actually, if you solve their sleep problem, then their memory returns, because we know that it's overnight through sleep that we consolidate our memories and we sort of get rid of the memories that we don't need. I think it's something like 400 billion pieces of information that we take in through every day. Don't quote me on the figure. I can't, but it's an awful lot. And it's through that, we only pay attention to a small percentage of that. But through the night, our brain sort of goes through that in tray and goes, do I need to remember that? No, throw, and we empty the memory in tray. And the bits that we want to remember, we put into long-term memory, and the bits that are trivial, we forget.
Yeah.
But if you're not sleeping, you won't convert the short-term memories into longer-term memories. So then people sort of say, oh, I've got some memory problems.
Yeah. That makes me think of like when I was in college and graduate school, and I would just stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would cram all this information in my brain. I'd go and I'd take the test, and literally like 2 days later, I'd forgotten everything.
Yes. Yeah. And there's a lot of research that says actually sleeping after studying helps to make it more long-term knowledge.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
And I think particularly anybody musical, or anybody who's into sport, will also have experienced this, is that you do some practice one day and you don't quite get the technique, but you've been practicing it. Then you sleep. And then the next day you pick it up and you play the song, or you perform that sporting activity better than you did the day before.
Yeah.
And that's because sleep has consolidated that into muscle memory, and you are now able to sort of do it automatically.
Yeah. Interesting. What are some of the other ways that we can optimize our brain health?
So apart from sleep, which is a massive part of optimizing brain health, then there are various different, so we talk about the LMNNOP principles. L standing for love and social connection. So we are sort of, human beings need to have some social contact with other people. And that's what helps to keep our brain healthy. Now, everybody has an individual level that they're comfortable and that they need. Some people like a little bit, some people need lots, but we all have that need for social connection for a healthy brain. M is for movement. So it doesn't have to be exercise if you don't want to exercise, but you do need to be moving. We are designed to move. We are human beings, as in we need to be being, and we need to be moving. So movement helps to keep our brain healthy. Being out in nature, we know, has a very positive effect on both mood and sort of brain health.
Well, let me just go back really quickly. The movement, why would it not have to be exercise? I would think to optimize brain health, it would need to be exercise.
Exercise is excellent for brain health, yes. And doing sort of structured exercise is really, really good, but not everybody can do structured exercise, or they may not enjoy doing structured exercise.
Yeah.
And actually, there's quite a lot of evidence that if you go at it hard at the gym an hour every day, but you sit down without moving around for the other 8 hours of the day, you don't get the benefit. So movement is really important, not just exercise. So again, we talk about sort of if you've got a job, or you're in a situation where you're sitting most of the day, actually getting up and walking around, so moving every 20 minutes, do some movements at your desk, keeping active throughout the day. 10,000 steps has been sort of bandied around as a bit of a goal, but doing nothing all day and doing 10,000 steps between 6 and 8 in the evening actually isn't as healthy as spreading those out through the day. So movement is really important. And then if you can add exercise on top of movement, then that's, where we want to be aiming for.
And then when you talk about nature, is there a certain amount of time in nature that is impactful, or just nature in general?
Nature in general, green spaces particularly, or blue spaces, so around water, are the two sort of areas that have got the most research into them as to how they impact us and our health.
And then what was the next?
So novelty. And I think this is something that we often lose as adults.
Yeah.
So children have novel experiences every single day. But as adults, many people will just have a routine, and much of their day is the same. We can think about this and say, actually, we know our brain likes novelty, because how many people have driven the same journey day in, day out, and then suddenly done it and gone, how did I get here?
Yeah.
I don't remember much of that journey. Our brain doesn't take notice very much of what's the same, but it jumps at anything that's new.
Yeah.
So having some novelty in your day, even if it's just something as simple as brushing your teeth with the other hand, will make your brain sit up and take notice.
Doing anything with the other hand, really. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
But
maybe trying a new food, going to a new restaurant, I try that. Like, instead of going to the same restaurant all the time, I'm always trying to seek a new one instead of falling into that pattern of same restaurant, same dish at the restaurant.
Yes. Because our brain likes novelty. It's through novelty that it keeps the connection strong. Our brain has something like 100 billion nerves within it. And the brain is very much the use it or lose it.
Yeah.
So if we don't use those connections, then they will die down, and we strengthen those connections that we use the most. And that's what we call a habit.
Yeah.
But actually, keeping all of those connections being used, doing things that are novel, making your brain sort of sit up and take notice of something, rather than falling into the routine of always sitting in the same chair, always having the same drink, always going to the same restaurant, always walking on the same side of the pavement.
Right. It could be as simple as like taking another path to work, or walking a different, route.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. That totally makes sense. But we don't think about that.
No.
Yeah.
But if you think about children, they're having new experiences every single day. And then we become adults and we stop.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny. I went to a trip to Africa recently, and we saw so many elephants that after a week, I'm like, there's, 20 elephants over there. There's 100 elephants. And it was like, oh my gosh, how did that become, so normal so quickly?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is that, we take notice of anything that's new. So it was novelty when you got there.
Yeah.
And then after you'd seen them every day, it was less of a novelty.
Yeah. Interesting.
And that's one of the reasons why people come back so refreshed from a holiday, because everything is novel.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I also think when we go on vacation, we tend to somehow be barefoot, either in water or on the beach, or maybe in nature. Like, I think we tend to be barefoot and our feet are touching the earth, and that's so healthy for us.
Yes. It's so important for grounding.
Yeah.
And connecting with nature. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's a way to just even go deeper into nature, is just take your shoes off for a minute.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. So really connect with nature.
Yeah.
And, a nice thing to do when you're out in nature is sort of, do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So, 5 things that I can see, 4 things that I can hear, 3 things that I can smell, 2 things I can touch, 1 thing, what can I taste?
Oh,
And,
interesting.
and just sort of use all the senses to
Yeah.
really get the most of the experience.
Yeah. That's a great idea. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. And then were there any
Yeah.
others after that? Element
So
O.
O stands for omega-3, which is the most important supplement for the brain to be
Uh-huh.
considered within our diet. So, are you eating oily fish and are you getting your omega-3s?
Yeah. I
Nutrition.
love that because it's the one thing that my kid and I both take every day. Is there
Right.
a number that's a magic number for omega-3s?
Not particularly magic number, but it's making sure you get the ratio of omega-6 and omega-3. So you are getting both. And the reason it's important is that our nerve cells in the brain are supported by something called glial cells.
Mm-hmm.
So they are literally the network that holds the nerves. And glial cells are very fatty. It's the omega-3 that helps to replenish the glial cells. The glial cells can regenerate, whereas nerves can't. So if we keep the network that's supporting the nerves healthy by
Yeah.
making sure our nutrition is healthy, and particularly the omega-3, then we help to keep a healthy nervous system in the brain.
Yeah, we're taking D3, omega-3, but I don't know if we're doing anything with omega-6 or even if I'm aware of what that is.
So it's just one of the other fatty acids.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's usually in all supplements. If they've got omega-3 in, then they usually put the both in.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Yeah, I'm doing that one right.
Excellent.
And then is there anything else after
and
that?
and then the P is for pause, which comes
Mm.
part, which sleep falls under, which is a big part, but also about taking some pauses in the day. They may be just what I would describe as a mindful moment. Or they may be, doing some Pilates, some yoga, some meditation, some formal mindfulness, but
Yeah.
actually sort of taking time out of your day, whether it's a 30-minute chunk, whether it's a 2-minute chunk, little and often through the day, just to help to sort of take your foot off the gas. Now,
Yeah.
if we think when we drive the car, we don't put our foot on the accelerator and keep it there and never ease off. But as human beings, people will think it's a badge of honor to just keep going and keep going and keep going
Yeah.
until they drop. And if you just keep going and keep going, you will drop at some point.
Yeah.
So it's about, simple things. And, some people are very good and very in tune with their sort of spirituality or religious spirituality or non-religious spirituality, where they can, they embrace techniques such as meditation and mindfulness. Other people aren't. And for those, I would sort of say, just take some mindful moments and let's make it an active mindfulness. So, we all wash our hands several times a day. When you wash your hands, instead of just rushing through
Yeah.
washing them, actually, focus on what does the water feel like? What's the temperature like? How does the soap feel on my hands? What does it smell like? What can I hear? How does the water sound when it's running? What does it sound like when it's running over my hand? Is that different? And bring your attention to your senses.
Yeah.
To just take that pause and just sort of step back, because that helps, our nervous system to just reset and move from that go, 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 fight, flight sort of drive to
Yeah.
sort of our parasympathetic rest and digest state.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of things that you mentioned are things that calm our nervous system down.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that seems like that would be key for optimizing our brain health.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want to be sort of pedal to the floor running our bodies on at full speed 24/7.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on around brain health? That was a lot, a lot of really good tips, and practical and easy to do, right? They're not hard things to bring into our life.
No, I think, I think the important message is to, to prioritize sleep.
Yeah.
The other thing that, happens through our sleep cycle, when we talked about the deep sleep and it being restorative and restoring the brain, is that's the period where we get rid of sort of there's what we call the tangles or the proteins that sort of can build up in the brain overnight, and it sort of detoxes overnight. And if we're not getting rid of those proteins, they're known as the tau proteins, and some of the other sort of related ones, they're the ones that in later life can cause Alzheimer's.
Mm.
So again, it's getting sufficient sleep through our lifetime of making sure each night has, in general, the right amount of sleep in it. So we're going through each phase of sleep, we're getting the benefits of sleep so that we're not setting ourselves up for brain disease in later life.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. And so, Nicola, tell us how people can connect with you. What are some of the things that you offer? I'll definitely put your links in the show notes, but I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah, so I'm probably most active on LinkedIn, where I sort of tend to sort of talk about sort of brain recovery and brain and how we can help people who are brain injured and some of the education around that. And I do have a Facebook page, which is Optimum Results, and a website, which is www.optimumresults.co.uk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you. I learned a lot. And I love how these are really easy things to implement in our life. And I really appreciate this topic. I think it's a really important topic. And sometimes we minimize the importance of sleep and even things like social interaction, time in nature, all those things. I think that they're so important. So thank you so much for this conversation today.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me. It's been lovely chatting to you.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Connected Community Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. I can be found at www.nickyyoga.com, NICKYYYOGA.com. Until I see you again next week, I hope you have a beautiful day.